Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing our product review for the Sur La Table air fryer oven. What makes this air fryer different from everything else on the market? Watch this video and find out. So you ready? Let's get into this. Just a quick note, my reviews are based upon the things that I think are important. That might be a little bit different for you, so what I recommend doing is after watching this video, you watch a couple of other videos made by different content creators. That way you can get a much wider range of opinions and concerns, enabling you to make a much more informed buying decision, and that is the most important thing of all. This is the Sur La Table air fry oven, and the first thing you're going to notice is this thing is pretty big. But this thing is basically a big square. So going side to side, this thing takes up 14.5 inches, and it's really about the same, 14.5 inches wide, 15 inches tall, and if you figure the handle on the front, we're at about 13.5 inches deep. So it's roughly a cube. The second thing you're going to notice is that this is finished in an absolutely beautiful piano black finish that everybody on earth loves, because everyone knows that piano black finishes never ever get fingerprints on them. Moving right along, the actual front fascia is stainless steel. So that's kind of nice, because what I've been seeing lately is a whole lot of plastic that just looks like stainless. Granted, it's just a little fascia on a plastic door, so it really doesn't have any structure to it or anything. But it does look nice, and I appreciate that. Looking at the inside of the machine, we'll go through everything that comes with this. Let's get this out of the way temporarily. But the machine comes with 3 of these little trays. They're coated in some sort of non-stick material. It's not smooth like a normal Teflon finish. It has a little bit of grit to it, but it does do a really nice job of keeping things from sticking to it, so I appreciate that. You've got 2 trays like this that have the holes in it. These are really great for air frying because it does promote a lot of air circulation. And there's 3 shelf locations that you can use in this machine. There's one up top, one in the middle, and then you have a third one right down below here. The last tray doesn't have any holes in it because this one would go in the bottom and serve as your drip tray. Taking these out, you could actually cook on this and stick it up on any one of these shelves. But just remember, you don't ever want anything below this, so you don't want to put something on this, set it right here, and then try to air fry something down here below it or something like that, because then you're going to have a serious problem. You're going to get crap all over the bottom of the machine, and I don't believe this machine would handle a whole bunch of crap getting directly on the bottom like that. Inside the machine, you can see this little shelf here and this little nub right here. This is for the rotisserie, which we'll talk about in just a moment, and it's also, to me, the best feature about this machine. In addition to the trays, you get an air fry basket with a removable handle. And the way this goes on is you just squeeze the handle together, stick it down into this receiver right here, and it will snap back and hold. Then you just have this little lock right here. You just flip that over and push it down on top of the handle, and that will keep you from being able to compress this again. Because if you can compress it, you can pull the handle right off the basket, and really you don't want to do that if you got hot food in there. And if you're using this to air fry in, it would just go right in here just like this. You wouldn't keep all these extra trays in here while you're doing that, but you get it. In addition to that, you get an air fry basket with a removable lid. This just twists the lock. To me, this is a little bit of a janky way to do this because this can really kind of flop off pretty easily. This didn't come off on me at all during testing, and once it's in the machine, it's held together so it can't come off. So it's just one of those things to remember, that you need to make sure this is kind of locked in there, and when you put it into the machine, you want to hold this closed while you're doing so. That being said, I really wish they would have designed this a little bit differently. Kind of a bummer. In addition to the basket, you get this stand right here for the basket. That just goes down on your table, and whenever you have your stuff air fried in here, you can just set this right on there, and you don't have to worry about it rolling away on you or something. In addition to this, you also get an additional skewer. This one already has these pincers on it. These you would use to trap like a whole chicken on here, or a big ham or something like that. Anything that you want to put in the rotisserie, you would jam these into the sides and tighten these down. That way it'll hold it in place, and when this turns around, it's got a little bit more meat to grab onto, so the meat just doesn't just sit there not moving. If I take these off, which admittedly these can be a little bit hard to get off. You've got two little things this has to get over, and it gets over the first one, and a lot of times you get stuck trying to get through here like that. It doesn't seem like that's a big deal, but when I was testing this making a rotisserie chicken, I had a heck of a time getting one of these on. It just did not want to clear the second loop, and it's got to clear them both because this has to make it inside and attach onto this little indention right here. If it doesn't, then it doesn't have enough room for this to grab onto, and this will end up hitting the side of your machine. So you don't want that to happen. That'll scratch up your machine and maybe break it, who knows. This also has a couple of these, and what these are for is they go on the same way that the other things did. You twist this on like this. Then we have a second one, and this goes on the same way, like so. And so you can see here, I was having a little trouble getting that over there. There we go. Now what this is for skewers. And the machine comes with a whole bunch of them, see? You got 8 skewers that this thing comes with. And if you're making shish kebabs or something like that, on one side you'd stick this through one of the holes, and on the other side you would compress the ends together and set it through one of these little slots. And right there, it'll hold that in place pretty good. The only other thing that comes in the package is this. And this is for getting the rotisserie out of your machine. I'll show you how that works really quick. Let's say we got our rotisserie in the machine, like so, and we'll just say that it just got done cooking. Then all you gotta do is use this to pick it up off the shelf and pull it back out of the machine. That way you don't get your hands burned or anything like that, and you don't have to reach into a hot oven. So I like that idea, it's nice. And it's also easy to use this to put this right onto the stand. Just like that. As far as the functions on the machine go, you'll see that there's no buttons or dials or anything on this. Everything is controlled via touchscreen. So if I turn this on, we got some different options. We got our temperature controls here. We have our time controls here. This light icon will turn the light on in the oven, and the little circly thing here is to turn the rotisserie on and off. For presets, we have French fries, meat, fish, pizza, chicken, bacon, shrimp, wings, vegetables, whole chicken, toast, broiling, baking, dehydrating, and preheats and reheats. They take a little bit of the guesswork out for you, and hopefully everything is just accurate. You can see there's no start button, no pause button, no cancel button, no nothing. Also, ironically, there's not an air fry button, even though this is an air fryer. Technically, the machine is kind of always air frying, and for the most part, all an air fryer is doing is it's just a convection oven. Except in a lot of cases, that fan will just run at a much higher speed. That's why most air fryers are super loud. The way you would actually get this machine to start, since there's not a start button, is you would just pick one of the presets. That could be a little bit confusing for some people, because if you're air frying and there's no air fry button, and you're going to be cooking something that's not on this list, then you'd be a little bit mystified as to what to do. So in my case, let's say I wanted to air fry a piece of steak. Well, no, meat is right there, never mind. Let's say I wanted to air fry a burrito or something like that. Well, in that case, you would just pick any of these presets. I would pick probably pizza for that. And you see the temperature and time are already set here, so maybe we would adjust the temperature. As you can see, the machine's already kind of started on its own, but don't worry about that. So we would go up to, I don't know, 360 degrees maybe, depending on what it says to cook it at on the package. And then we would adjust the time, and you can see the machine's already going. So that's really it. It's a little bit weird the way that works, but you get used to it. Also remember, the touchscreen doesn't actually have real buttons, so sometimes you have to push just for a split second longer than you would with a regular button to get things to register. Now if I wanted to stop this, then I can just hit the off button and it's going to stop eventually on its own. It takes about 10-15 seconds to stop, and there it went, turned off. In all actuality, this machine cooks pretty darn quiet. I'll hold up a decimeter here just so you can see how loud this thing is. So let's give this a second to get up to speed. And you can see that's sitting right about 70 decibels, maybe 69 decibels. And you can see it doesn't hit 70 unless I'm talking. I did a whole bunch of stuff to test this machine out, and for the most part, all I used were the preset buttons on the machine. I left everything at the default settings to see how well the machine would handle it without me having to do anything. The first thing I did was use the toast function to toast some sourdough bread. 2 slices could sit on each tray, so in actuality you could probably put 6 slices in there. And that's with the larger loaf sourdough bread. If you use a smaller loaf, you'd be able to fit more on there. When that got done, you can see that both slices of toast have a nice little shade of brown to them. And you probably can't tell too much by the video, but they're nice and crunchy. Perfect toast for me anyway, just the amount of crunch that I like. I went on to use that same toast function to make 2 Pop-Tarts. I put in cherry Pop-Tarts because everybody knows that cherry Pop-Tarts are the best Pop-Tarts. Don't agree with me? Well, then let me know what your favorite flavor is down in the comments. Again, I just left that at default settings for toast, and when it came out it was piping hot. The crust for the Pop-Tarts was nice and crunchy on the outside, and all the filling was nice and hot too, so does a great job as a toaster. That's really good to know if you either don't have a toaster or you don't want to use counter space up to have a toaster on there. Because if you got that on your countertop, it's going to take up all your countertop. Next, I moved on to testing the air fry function, and for that, we air fried crisp cut French fries. I just threw them into the machine and used the preset for French fries. Both the time and temperature for that preset were much lower on the machine than they were on the package. But I went ahead and just let it do its thing to see what would happen. Also, a couple of times during the air fry, I took the basket out and tossed the fries around a little bit in there as well. That's something that you need to do with any air fryer though, if you're using a basket. So if you have an air fryer and you have problems with uneven cooking, that's usually what the problem is if you're cooking something like that. Remember, you're not using oil, it's not going to get in between all your stuff. The air can only cook what the air can get to. Anyway, when the timer ran out, the French fries were not done. They weren't frozen or anything, but they were a little bit on the cold and soggy side. So I just added a few more minutes and set the temperature to what it says on the side of the bag. Now the fries were nice and crunchy. It had a couple of spots on some of the fries that were a little bit on the dark side, but they still tasted really good. Hey, by the way, if this is your first time here and you want to learn some cool new recipes, get some great cooking tips and tricks and all sorts of other kitchen related things, then start now by subscribing to the channel and clicking the notification bell so you never miss a thing. Next, I tested out the dehydrate function, and for that I made beef jerky. So I marinated some beef, cut it into really thin slices, and used the 2 vented trays to make my jerky. I just left it at the defaults even though the time and temperature are not what I would normally use to make beef jerky. When the time ran out, the jerky actually looked really good. It was a little bit more moist than I like it, but then again, I like really dry beef jerky. So that's not a knock on the machine, that's just a personal preference. What I ended up doing was I dehydrated it for about 3 additional hours, and then it came out exactly the way I like it. Next, I made some spicy air-fried garlic wings with the basket. That process was super easy, and that's where this machine really starts to shine. I seasoned up all my wings, threw them into the rotisserie basket, set it in the machine, used the preset, and just let it go. Since I'm using the rotisserie basket, there's no having to stop the machine, take it out, shake up the contents, move things around. Nothing like that because it's all handled in that rotisserie for you. And when the timer ran out, this is how the chicken looked. Absolutely perfect. From there, it's just a quick toss in the sauce and you're ready to eat. Not super crunchy wings, but I didn't air fry them long enough for them to get super crunchy like that. I didn't want to overcook them. For the next test, I made a frozen pizza, and this one was really interesting. The trays in the machine will fit a 9-inch frozen pizza almost exactly perfect. The instructions for my pizza said to cook it at 400 degrees for 20 to 22 minutes. It only needed about 350 degrees for 10 minutes. So I was sure the thing was going to be undercooked. But when the timer ran out, here's how the pizza looked. The cheese is melted perfectly. It might be a tiny bit dark in the middle. Better yet, the bottom of the pizza was nice and crunchy. This is one of those Quest pizzas, so it has a whey protein crust, and those typically don't get very crunchy, so I was pretty surprised. In fact, this is probably the best a Quest pizza has ever tasted for me. Next, we tried to use the bacon preset, and this one kind of fell off the rails a little bit. I put a few strips of bacon onto each one of the air fry trays, used that preset, and let it go. When it got done, everything was undercooked. So I ran it for a second cycle, and when that came out, you can see that the bacon on the top tray is looking pretty good now, but the bacon on the bottom tray is barely cooked at all. To finish it up, I had to pull that top tray out and move the bottom tray up a little bit, and then it finally cooked. But for me, the experience with that bacon was a little bit disappointing.
I am very disappointed!
For the last test, I made a rotisserie chicken. The chicken I used was 4 pounds. The machine can handle chickens up to 5 pounds, it says. I just used the rotisserie skewer and the 2 tines that I showed you earlier. Brushed on a light layer of oil and seasoned up the entire bird. And then I just let it run on the preset like everything else. According to the air fry oven, it was only going to take 35 minutes with no preheat. So I was really curious to see exactly how this was going to come out, because 35 minutes is not very much time on a rotisserie chicken. When the cycle got done, the chicken looked fantastic. The color looks great, the skin is nice and crunchy, and you can see a lot of clear juices coming out of it. But when I took my thermometer and measured the temperature of the breast, it was a good 15 degrees too cold. So that's not good. What I ended up doing is I used the same preset again, except this time I set the time to 10 minutes. That way I get an extra 10 minutes of cooking just to see what would happen. And when that got done, the chicken was absolutely perfect this time. The final result on that rotisserie chicken is unbelievably good. It was super delicious. As good or better than any rotisserie chicken that I've ever bought out of the store. And if you're doing it yourself, you can really control what goes into it. Just a word to the wise, if you're gonna use your presets, pay close attention to make sure you're getting enough time on your cooks, because that can really vary depending on what you're putting in there and where you live. Don't be afraid to add a little bit of extra time if you need to. In my opinion, the Sur La Table air fryer oven is a really neat little appliance. Not only can it handle your air frying duties, but it does a whole lot of stuff really well. The best part being the rotisserie. Not too many machines have those, so it really makes it much more compelling. If you'd like a little bit more information about the Sur La Table air fryer oven, I do have an Amazon affiliate link to it down in the description of the video. If you buy anything through those links, I do make a small commission, but it doesn't change the price that you pay 1 cent. If you like this video, you might like this video right here where I show you how to make some really great air fried wings with this machine. Those came out fantastic. Well, that's it for now. I hope to see you back again here really soon, and until that time, I'm Joe, and I hope you have a phenomenal day. Take it easy.